My essay was on James Baldwin. Kids growing up learning about many voices of Black history and the Civil Rights Movement. We learned about
Can't hear you.
Kids growing up learning about the many voices of Black history and the Civil Rights Movement. We learn about Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad. We learn about Rosa Parks and the Montgomery bus boycott. We learn about Martin Luther King Jr. and the March on Washington. If Martin Luther King Jr. represented civil rights through spoken voice, then James Baldwin did so through writing. To write about Martin Luther King Jr. is expected and not as impressive as it is to use this essay to learn about someone new. I had never heard of James Baldwin until I began to research people to write about. James Baldwin was known as an intellectual activist who faced many challenges growing up as a Black man. He was born August 6, 1924 in Harlem, New York. James Baldwin began writing stories, essays, and book reviews early in life. Discrimination was a recurring topic in his writings. Baldwin sought to show the isolation of Blacks in society. At one point in his life, he was so disgusted by the prejudice, Baldwin left for Paris and spent almost the rest of his life there. He returned at one point solely to support the civil rights effort. He was in Selma for the March to Montgomery. He spent his time addressing rights with political figures like Attorney General Robert Kennedy. He is considered one of the greatest writers of his generation, bringing literary attention to racism in the United States. He worked with both Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. While Martin Luther King's idea of freedom was to show kindness and use nonviolent actions to reach his goal, Malcolm X was the opposite, wanting Blacks to take what was rightfully theirs. James Baldwin looked deep for the deeper meaning of racism in both Black and white lives. He was not afraid to share his thoughts in his writings. He wanted our country to focus on acceptance, not superiority and inferiority. He wanted people to examine their lives, much like the Bible tells us to do in 1 Corinthians 11:28. Let a man examine himself, and so let him eat of that bread and drink of that cup. His desire for us to focus on self-examination was ahead of its time. James Baldwin is quoted saying that a bill is coming that I fear America is not prepared to pay. We are living that today. America is at a low point today, Black men being killed for little or no reason, homelessness rising, and more kids living in poverty. We are paying the price now for not realizing our similarities. We are all God's children. Like MLK, James Baldwin focused on love. He said, if we fail to learn to live together, we face the destruction of our society. We face the fire next time. I have an opportunity to show the way and avoid the next fire. We all do.
Amen.